The Mario series we know today wouldn't be anything if Mario wasn't made the way he is. The master of jumping, savior of galaxies, triumphant over formidable foes like Petey Piranha, the Koopaling clan, and most notably, Bowser the Koopa King. One of the most dangerous villains across Nintendo's first-party titles who's terrorized citizens of the Mushroom Kingdom for over 35 years. For Mario to have constantly dealt with all these obstacles over the years clearly makes him a ridiculously strong individual. But Mario has been shown to come in various forms throughout the course of these mainline platformer titles, both 2D and 3D alike. Not always having access to the same moves, power-ups, or assistance from tools like Cappy or Flood in every single game. So that begs the question, which version of Mario is actually the strongest here? I'm talking peak potential strength here, with whatever power-ups, moves, or durability factors said Mario game is in allows him to take advantage of. Who truly stands at the top above the rest? Wanted to quickly give a shout out to Legend of Zelda YouTuber Zeltic for being one of the reasons I got the urge to make a video like this. He did an incredibly solid video a few years back scaling which of the links is the most powerful. There's 15 different Marios to choose from in this video, some of which I put as pairings since they pretty much function the same, i.e. the Mario from the Galaxy games and the Mario from the OG Super Mario Bros. And Lost Levels. Not really including Baby Mario here either, since in the platformer titles he's kind of a non-factor in terms of getting things done, with the Yoshis doing almost all the work there. I plan to rank the Marios on a 1 to 10 scale for each of the following categories: movement abilities, such as jump variations, dives, speed changes, things of that nature; the amount of unique abilities like power-ups or tool variations a Mario can access; destructive power / how well Mario can defeat strong foes with his given arsenal; and durability, meaning how well a Mario can take damage from his surroundings or enemies. That one in particular is going to be the toughest to scale because of how differently Mario takes damage in sandbox 3D games compared to 2D games, so bear with me on that one. Now, without further ado, let's rank these fine Italian men. Starting off the list at the very bottom, but still respectable in his own right, is the Mario from Super Mario Bros. 2, the Doki Doki remake one. This Mario is unique in his own right because of the way he can pluck things off the ground and throw them. Throughout the game, Mario has to fight the likes of Birdos, Mouser, and the leader of the 8-bits, Wart. Physically, this Mario isn't very high because this is the only version of Mario in the mainline titles whose jump has zero destructive power to it. The only way he can beat enemies is by throwing an item at them or throwing another foe at the first enemy. Power-ups are also lacking too, since standard mushrooms are added onto Mario's health bar, which does actually give him better durability than some of the other Marios from the early 2D era. He can get invincibility star powers if enough cherries are collected though. Even still, not having things like the fire flower or jump to stop on enemies hurt quite a bit in my opinion. This Mario can do more than just regular jump though, having access to a spring jump which has been seen in more recent titles too, like 3D Land and 3D World. Wart isn't the most threatening boss Mario has to take down either. The guy just shoots bubbles out of his mouth and Mario has to dodge. Call me crazy, but bubbles aren't the most threatening thing to be taking damage from. But I think what gives this Mario the least amount of credibility is he's technically not even real. The ending of this game confirmed the entire game took place in Mario's dreams, so it's a make-believe version of Mario that isn't even that strong at his core. You'd think Mario would want to make himself crazy strong in a dream like this, you know? For the number rankings, I gotta give him a 4 out of 10 for movement options, 2 out of 10 for power-up access, 2 out of 10 for destructive power, and a 5 out of 10 for durability. Up next, we have the Mario from the first 2 Super Mario Bros. Games, the OG plumber who constantly dealt with his princess being in another castle. At first glance, one might think this version of Mario deserves to be high in the sense that he had to beat Bowser so many times, but technically, he never actually beat Bowser multiple times prior to World 8, rather standard enemies disguised as Bowser. Even still, this Mario just beating this version of Bowser once is enough for me to put him above the likes of Super Mario Bros. 2 Mario. In terms of power-ups, Mario only has access to the Fire Flower, Super Mushroom, and Starman, but 2 of those are very strong in their own right, so he can still get by. Although his durability does take a hit in this game, even if you have the Fire Flower, getting hit once will always revert you back to Small Mario, or just kill you if you're Small Mario already. Mario loses out on the spring jump too, but this time his jump actually does damage to enemies, which is another big selling point for why I give this Mario the slight edge over the previous. Obviously, this Mario takes a hit in some departments, as you can see. It's just that the areas that got better are the ones that are more important to his strength in winning a fight against Bowser or another rather powerful foe. For this Mario's final numbers, I'm going to give him a 2 out of 10 for movement options, 3 out of 10 for power-up access, 6.5 out of 10 for destructive power, and a 4 out of 10 for durability. Next up is the Super Mario Lands Mario, the only other version of Mario besides Super Mario Bros. 2 Mario that dealt with someone other than Bowser as his final foe, those being Totanga and Wario. The Super Mario Land 2 version of him has a slight edge, I suppose, due to having access to the carrot power-up and Wario being confirmed stronger than Totanga, but the difference is negligible at best. The likes of the Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Starman return as well. Actually, in the first Super Mario Land, it's the Super Ball Flower, which is a more inconsistent version of the Fire Flower that has balls bouncing around terrain. The carrot power-up doesn't really add much for destructive power either. It's mostly used for platforming sections so you can float in the air for a bit of extra time, and the way it floats feels kind of similar to how Yoshi would fly in Super Mario World, only the bunny ears aren't infinite. So it really just adds one extra variety slot for Mario's arsenal with not a ton of value at that. Spin jumping is a thing now though, which allows Mario to break blocks whenever he's in super form. This can be seen as a replacement of sorts to the Super Mario Bros. 2 spring jump or boost jump. Durability is a bit better here than the previous Mario since getting hit doesn't always revert you back to small Mario. If you have the bunny or Fire Flower before taking a hit, you'll just go back to Super Mario. Initially, I actually had this version of Mario even lower because of how Bowser wasn't in either of these games, and I don't believe Wario can scale to Bowser's level at the current moment, mainly because of how Wario would act around Bowser in the spin-off titles. I know this video is supposed to be revolved around the main Mario games, but for this specific point I'm making an exception since Wario has appeared almost exclusively in Mario spin-off titles throughout the majority of his existence. The thing is, I don't think it's crazy to say this Wario scales higher than the version of Bowser Mario fought in the first Super Mario Bros. A Bowser that was a one-and-done defeat that could only throw hammers, jump, and shoot fire. Plus, Wario was one of the earliest Mario bosses to use Mario's power-ups against him, specifically using the carrot power-up to float around in battle. So this is the one instance I'll give Wario the edge over Bowser here because of how bare-boned the original Bowser fight was. This Wario might have worse durability than OG Bowser though because he's weak to standard jump attacks, which Bowser has never been weak to in any mainline Mario platformer to date. Even still, I don't think that counts him out as weaker overall. For Mario Lands numbers, I'll give him a 4 out of 10 for movement, 4 out of 10 for power-up access, 6 out of 10 for destructive power, and a 5 out of 10 for durability. Following Super Mario Lands Mario is the Mario from Super Mario Sunshine. Now, be honest with me. Did the thumbnail calling this Mario weak make you hit the dislike button before even watching the video? I knew it. In all seriousness though, this Mario isn't actually weak, none of them are. However, I do believe this version of Mario is the weakest amongst the 3D versions of him. The best thing this Mario has going for him is his movement options and access to a few unique abilities, which main functions essentially just add into Mario's movement more, to be honest. Mario's movement in this game is some of the best it's been in the entire series. We got triple jumping, spin jumping, side flips, ground pounds, dives, and sliding. Sliding in particular can be boosted if you use Flood on the ground before a dive. His durability improves compared to the previous games as well technically, which is the case for the other 3D Mario games too, besides 3D Land and 3D World. This health meter in particular allowing Mario to take 8 hits of damage before dying. Depending on the enemy though, he could die faster because some enemies can do more than 1 point of damage. Like I mentioned before, the variations of the flood nozzles are all used for movement-based purposes. Hover gets you across long gaps, Turbo makes you run faster, while Rocket gets you higher. The Rocket nozzle does indirectly improve Mario's ground pound strength, which is nice, but that type of ground pound isn't exclusive to the Rocket nozzle because Mario can still unleash that same pound if used from an equal or greater height than the rocket takes him. Problem with these nozzles is they don't really offer much when it comes to beating enemies or bosses, like directly. The Turbo nozzle in particular isn't used for a single required shine sprite in the entire game. Mario's mainly using the regular squirt nozzle to help take enemies down, but a lot of the time that'll just stun the enemy and you have to do another follow-up attack to get actual damage in. Most instances it's just better to jump on them or you gotta squirt one once before landing a jump. And this applies to some of the bosses as well. Most of them needed to be stunned in some way with Flood before Mario does something else to damage them. The final Bowser fight was a bit of a weird one. He's massive in this game, one of the biggest we've seen him in a 3D Mario game. In several instances, Bowser being bigger has indicated he's stronger than when he's normal sized. Super Mario Galaxy 2 and most of the new Super Mario Bros. Titles highlight this. My issue with Sunshine's Bowser is his size feels like it's completely cosmetic in this fight. Yeah, he's got the big fire breath, but that's about it. If anything, dodging Bowser Jr.'s bullets is more of a pain in the butt. The big guy just sits in the bathtub watching you a lot of the time. It's a one and done fight too, which is very rare for 3D Mario titles. Bowser's historically been fought at least a couple times before he's truly been taken down by Mario in the end with 3D titles. Homie just gave up after his bathtub got broken in this game. Come on, brother, have some fight back. If it wasn't for how solid Mario's movement was in this game, I might have had Sunshine's self even descended lower. The final numbers I'm going to give this Mario are a 7 out of 10 for movement, 3 out of 10 for power-up and or tool access, 3 out of 10 for destructive power, and a 6.5 out of 10 for durability. After Sunshine comes in the Super Mario World version of Mario. I was going back and forth so much deciding whether to have this version of Mario above or below Sunshine because of how close it was. One of Mario's most iconic titles to date, not only because of how innovative the level designs were, but this game was the one to introduce Yoshi into the Mario universe. To clarify, I'm not going to be counting Yoshi as part of Mario's arsenal here due to Yoshi kind of coming into his own over the years. If Yoshi hadn't become his own standalone character with his own games, then I'd probably have him on the same level as Flood or Cappy, but that's just not the case in present day. What really carries this version of Mario for me to give it the slight edge over Sunshine is how insanely versatile the Cape Feather is and how much more depth the final Bowser fight had. I've already sung the Cape Feather's praises quite a bit in my top 10 strongest power-ups video, but the fact that this power-up can give Mario extra movement options and attacking power is great. The amount of powers Mario has access to is technically one higher than Sunshine's do, plus Mario World's power-ups are just more useful when it comes to killing baddies quicker. Durability, Mario does get a bit worse here. I'm not sure why, but Mario reverts back to his original Super Mario Bros. Self where any amount of damage returns him into Small Mario or kills him. Not sure why that's a thing in this game and it wasn't in SMB3, but whatever. Perhaps they just wanted the game to be a little bit more difficult. As for the Bowser fight, this Bowser is obviously smaller than the Sunshine one, but takes more hits to defeat and has a lot more attack variety. He can throw Mecha Koopas, spit waves of fireballs that cover most of the arena at once, plop out a giant cannonball to roll towards you, and bounce around in his clown car up and down, similar to how King K. Rool bounces around the ending phases of his Donkey Kong Country fight. Yeah, hitting Bowser with wind-up toys isn't too crazy. Even still, he takes 8 hits to beat, which is a lot more than the average Bowser fight. I think Sunshine's was only 5 hits. So the final numbers I'm going to give this Mario are a 6 out of 10 for movement, 5 out of 10 for power-up access, 7 out of 10 for destructive power, and a 3 out of 10 for durability. Following Super Mario World's Mario is Super Mario Bros. 3 Mario. The Mario that dealt with the Koopalings and Bowser to save the different kings in the Mushroom Kingdom who had been turned into animals. Oh, and Princess Peach too, obviously. Classics like the standard Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Starman return once again. Just to save myself some time here, every single version of Mario from here on out that's in a linear game that ends in a gold pole or something similar includes those 3 power-ups. Super Mario Bros. 3 introduced even more power-ups for Mario to choose from this time. The iconic Super Leaf, Tanuki Suit, Frog Suit, and Hammer Suit, all of which give Mario tons of new abilities. The Super Leaf allows Mario to fly after gaining enough running momentum and descend lower, the Tanuki Suit offering the same abilities plus the power to turn into a statue to avoid taking damage from enemies, Frog Suit makes moving through water a lot easier while land movement becomes harder, and the Hammer Suit, which lets Mario throw a couple hammers at a time in a lobbing formation. Honestly, with the exception of the Frog Suit, all these new power-ups are incredibly useful. The Super Leaf / Tanuki Suit just being shy of being on par with the Cape Feather in terms of power level in my opinion. The Hammer Suit having great destructive power as well, with the upward lobbing throws being a lot more useful to take out enemies above Mario instead of just ones directly in front of him. But even then, the Fire Flowers got us covered in that regard. I believe the versions of the Koopalings that were fought here are also stronger than the ones fought in Super Mario World. Them having the wands is a big one, but also the way they would roll around in their shells in between attacks was not present in World. The fights in World felt a lot more centered around dealing with the terrain in the rooms you fought the Koopalings in, rather than having to deal with their direct attacks. Although I will say the Bowser fight did have less attack variety, however the way he would magnetize onto Mario when doing those ground pounds made the fight feel more authentic in a sense, like he's actually trying to directly hit Mario instead of just attacking in his general direction to make dodging easier. The final numbers I'll give this Mario are a 5 out of 10 for movement, 7 out of 10 for power-up access, 7.5 out of 10 for destructive power, and a 5 out of 10 for durability. Next up, we have Super Mario 64's Mario. Mario's first adventure in 3 dimensions. Peach is kidnapped once again, only this time she's being held somewhere inside her own castle, forcing Mario to explore every nook and cranny by collecting power stars and defeating Bowser. What this Mario may lack in power-up variety, he definitely makes up for with movement and usefulness from the few power-ups he can use. Mario's movement in this game is very solid. Base movement options in particular, I'd say, are a little bit better than Sunshine's because of being able to use the fan favorite long jump, a form of jumping that's great for not only getting across large gaps, but just moving faster in the world in general. Then there's the backflip, and that's great for reaching high ledges that don't have quite enough room below for a triple jump momentum. This is the one and only mainline Mario game to have punching and kicking as a part of Mario's moveset as well. Punching mainly being used to take out grounded enemies, while kicking can take out airborne enemies and give Mario a bit more momentum in the air. A lot of speedrunners for this game will use jump kicks in certain areas to save time in their runs. Mario having access to only 3 proper power-ups in this game with the caps may not seem like a lot, but the utility they offer is well worth it. The wing cap greatly improving Mario's movement to let him fly freely for a short period of time, the vanish cap allowing him to walk through certain walls and ignore enemies completely, and then finally the metal cap that lets Mario walk underwater and defeat certain enemies by just walking into them. His actual walk speed takes a bit of a hit, but having one of the core attributes of the Starman power-up along with underwater walking feels like a solid enough trade. Like in Sunshine, Mario has a health bar again with 8 hit points. Once again, some enemies can take more hit points from him than just 1. However, if I'm not mistaken, there's a way you can cheese getting your health back without grabbing coins, and Mario just goes underwater for a bit of time and then comes back to the surface if said area has water. I don't think any other game was like this in that regard. But what I think is one of this Mario's biggest selling points is how he has to take down Bowser 3 different times. All the previous Bowser fights I've talked about so far were either one and dones or regular enemies and Bowser disguises. The fact that this Bowser needed to be taken out 3 times before being truly dealt with in the end leads me to believe this version of Bowser is more likely powerful than the other versions of him that I've previously listed. He's got fairly decent attacking variety too, mainly in the final fight where he can shoot fire and create shockwaves in between taking damage. In the end, I think I'm going to give this Mario an 8 out of 10 for movement, 3 out of 10 for power-up access, 7.5 for destructive power, and a 7 out of 10 for durability. Back to the 2D versions of Mario, we got the Mario from New Super Mario Bros. DS. Mario's first adventure back in 2D after a very long gap in between this and Super Mario Land 2. Mario has to save Peach again, only this time he's dealing with both Bowser and Bowser Jr. 3 new power-ups made their Super Mario series debut in this game, those being the Mini Mushroom, Mega Mushroom, and the Blue Shell. The Mini Mushroom not being the most useful in the world because it makes Mario move a bit faster and jump higher at the cost of his durability. The Mega Mushroom, on the other hand, is incredible for taking out everything in your path and farming extra lives. Then there's the Blue Shell, which can give Mario some enhanced movement and another way to defeat enemies while on the move, albeit it's a bit awkward to control. The new Super Mario Bros. Titles also introduced triple jumping in 2D for the first time to help Mario's movement in levels. Spin jumping is kind of back, but only really done if Mario uses a spin block prior. Durability is a weird one because it's still 3 hits at most will typically kill you, but stuff like the Mega Mushroom and Starman can obviously negate that. Having 2 power-ups that essentially make Mario invincible is a big player here. This game was also the first game to introduced the concept of Dry Bowser, a dry bones version of Bowser who typically comes to be after Bowser falls into some lava. Regular Bowser goes down pretty early in the main game, but you eventually have to take down Dry Bowser in the final world, then Bowser and Bowser Jr. at the same time as the final bosses. Obviously Sunshine did this too, but the attacks from those two were a lot trickier in this game since Bowser Jr. can just run towards you and throw shells while his dad will zone you out with fireballs. Having a power-up like the Fire Flower does make this quite a bit easier though. I'd say the new power-up's viability and the way Bowser is fought in this game is what gives this Mario the ever so slight edge over his Super Mario 64 self. Final numbers I'm going with are 6 out of 10 for movement, 6 out of 10 for power-up access, 8.5 for destructive capability, and 6 out of 10 for durability. A quick jump back to 3D Mario, we have the version of him from Super Mario 3D Land. Honestly, it feels like the version of Mario here is very comparable to the one from the first New Soup game, both having to fight Dry Bowser and having close to the same amount of available power-ups to choose from. Mario's movement improves here, but in some weird ways. He loses out on the triple jump, but can long jump again, roll, crouch jump, spring jump, and side flip. The Super Leaf is back, only this time it gives the tail swipe, slower defense, and statue pound, no more flight meter for the time being. But we are introduced to the Boomerang Flower in the Invincibility Leaf. The Boomerang Flower being sort of the sister power-up to the Hammer Suit, one boomerang can defeat several enemies at once as long as they're in toss range, while the Invincibility Leaf works as a fusion between the Starman and the Super Leaf. Only you can keep the Invincibility Leaf forever until a level is completed. Sure, it might not cover as much ground as the Mega Mushroom, but being able to keep your Tanuki powers and have more control over your movement is more ideal in my opinion. Bowser is quite the beast in this game too. For the main story, he only needs to be defeated twice, but if you play through the entire game, you can face Dry Bowser 3 times as well in the special worlds, meaning you technically defeat Bowser 5 whole times in this adventure before being totally done with the game. Just one time in the lava wasn't enough to turn Bowser into Dry Bowser either. He had to fall into lava twice during his World 8 fight before becoming Dry Bowser. He's still got the classic Fire Breath, but can also create shockwaves with jumps, throw spiked balls, and shoot larger than normal blasts of fire that I think also travel faster than his standard blasts, making this the most diverse Bowser on this list so far, if I'm not mistaken. It's this, plus the Invincibility Leaf access that give this Mario the edge over the previous, I think. Final numbers are going to be 6.5 out of 10 for movement, 6.5 out of 10 for power-up access, 8.5 out of 10 for destructive capability, and 6 out of 10 for durability. Right back into the new Super Mario Bros. Titles, we have the Mario from New Super Mario Bros. Bros. Wii, the title that had the long-awaited return of the Koopalings, working together with Bowser, Bowser Jr., and Kamek all for the first time. It's kind of crazy how this Mario upgraded compared to his previous new soup self. We got the Propeller Mushroom, Penguin Suit, Ice Flower, and the return of the Mini Mushroom. The Propeller Mushroom mainly being used for platforming sections, but the Penguin Suit and Ice Flower do a really good job at showing Mario's destructive capability. Finally, Mario can kill Dry Bones! It's been so long. Penguin Suit is literally just a better version of the Ice Flower though, because Mario will get ice terrain immunity, sliding on his stomach, and smoother water movement. So in a way, it's also a better version of the Super Mario Bros. 3 Frog Suit. This Mario also needs to take down each of the Koopalings twice before they're fully dealt with. Each of the second fights having unique properties to them thanks to Kamek's magical interference. Bowser Jr. needs to be defeated 3 times, while Bowser is twice. Granted, the second phase of Bowser's fight has him at one of his greatest sizes we've seen him. All Mario can do is run away from him until reaching a floor pit switch. His attacking patterns are still a bit basic even during this part though, mainly just breathing larger blasts of fire and swiping his hands towards Mario. But even avoid taking a hit will still have Bowser destroying parts of the terrain Mario has to navigate through. Sorry if some of these new soup sections feel short. A lot of these titles play very similarly with slight tweaks in between. The final numbers for this Mario are going to be 6.5 out of 10 for movement, 7 out of 10 for power-up access, 8.5 out of 10 for destructive capability, and a 6 out of 10 for durability. Next up in the new soup titles is the new Super Mario Bros. U Mario. Everything new added in New Super Mario Bros. Wii returned in this game, along with the addition of the Acorn Mushroom / P Acorn, which essentially works as a better version of the Propeller Shroom. It offers a height boost in midair, slower descent, and can let you stick to walls. The P Acorn more so working like the Cape Feather, where it'll give Mario infinite flight, just no invincibility. All of Mario's standard movements and durability factors are the same as well. The Koopalings are back again too, only this time they gotta be defeated just once before they're done, with the tower fights being replaced by different variations of Boom Boom and a giant Sumo Bro, which depending on the variation I'd say is ever so slightly harder than the Koopalings' first fights in New Soup Wii. The Bowser fight is definitely tougher this time around. Bowser's big form here might be a little smaller than the Wii version, but you actually need to attack him this time using Junior's Kooper Clown car. Bowser attacks similarly to his Koopaling underlings in between his attacks too, rolling around and jumping inside his shell. He's got standard fire blast and a meteor shower variation that will fall and burst from the sky, and Junior will try to attack you with bombs too. It's just a lot going on in this final boss. Final numbers I'll give this Mario are a 7 out of 10 for movement, 7 out of 10 for power-up access, 8.5 out of 10 for destructive power, and a 6 out of 10 for durability. Up next is our last version of 2D Mario, the Mario from New Super Mario Bros. 2. Movement-wise, he's back to his New Super Mario Bros. DS moveset plus the wall jumping. Spin jumping in midair and picking up frozen enemies is gone, those mechanics being console exclusive for whatever reason. The biggest selling points for this game are how incredibly broken the power-up line is. Not only do the Mega Mushroom and Invincibility Leaf return, but this game also introduces the Gold Flower power-up, a power-up that functions very similarly to the standard Fire Flower, only the Blast Mario fires are much larger, can destroy blocks in AoE formats, and defeat multiple enemies at once. Anything that's destroyed by this will earn Mario more coins than normal to make farming lives easier too. The Invincibility Leaf in this game is even stronger than it is in 3D Land because now you have access to the flight meter from Super Mario Bros. 3, and once enough momentum is going, you can permanently fly. It's just not balanced at all. The standard and giant versions of Bowser are back, and they play more like they did in New Super Wii, where Mario is just playing a game of cat and mouse with them until reaching a specific button. The reason I gave this a bit of an edge over the giant Bowser you actually engage in combat with in the Wii U game is because Dry Bowser makes a return, having his own giant fight as well, making this the only mainline title to have a giant Dry Bowser fight so far. So I'm just giving this version of Bowser the slightly higher power level because of how insanely resilient he is in this game. Yeah, 3D Land technically had more encounters, but he never got to the same size as he did in New Soup 2. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, with the exception of Super Mario Sunshine, Bowser has historically become stronger whenever his size increases. Add that on with the extra durability factor of being able to turn into Dry Bowser again makes this version of Bowser quite the force to be reckoned with. Yet Mario still manages to prevail over him. As for the final numbers for this Mario, it's going to be 6.5 out of 10 for movement, 8 out of 10 for power-up access, 10 out of 10 for destructive power, and a 6 out of 10 for durability. On to the top 3, which I'm sure you guys can guess what's left based on process of elimination. The number 3 spot goes to the Mario from the 2 Super Mario Galaxy games. This Mario traveled across all different corners of the universe with the help of Rosalina and the Lumas. He had to collect the Power Stars and Grand Stars to stop Bowser's Galaxy creation and save Peach. Mario's main tool in this game is the brand new Luma Spin, which is used to gain a bit of extra jump height, solve puzzles, and defeat certain enemies and bosses. The health bar returns in this this game too, but Mario can only have up to 6 hit points instead of 8. However, nothing in this game does partial damage to Mario, if I'm not mistaken. He either takes 1 point of damage or gets one shot. And getting one shot is extremely uncommon too. Fall damage is also completely removed. This was something that the Mario from 64 and Sunshine had to be wary of unless they ground pound or dive. Base movement wise, Mario's got everything the Super Mario 64 Mario could do, minus punching, kicking, and diving. The amount of power-ups this Mario can choose from is absolutely insane across these two games too. 8 different standard power-ups to choose from. 8. Sure, some of them might not be the most useful for taking enemies down, but there are others that definitely are. The Rock Mushroom especially, which acts similarly to the Blue Shell power-up in terms of controls. This just covers more of a wide range and breaks things even larger than just brick blocks. Oddly enough, it feels like the spin is what hits the hardest a lot of the time. The spin is the main thing used to beat Bowser in his Super Mario Galaxy 1 fights, whereas in the sequel, it was more focused on ground-pounding meteorites into his giant body. Yeah, ground pounds aren't really a new move or anything, but it's a meteorite the size of Big Bowser's face, for crying out loud. Both games has Mario defeating Bowser 3 times before he's taken out for good. Granted, the Bowser from Galaxy 2 is likely more powerful even with a little less attack variety, because he was being directly enhanced by a Grand Star's power each time Mario fought him. The climax of the Galaxy 2 fight in particular taking place inside what felt like a black hole or a black hole equivalent. Speaking of black holes, this is a Mario that survived a black hole literally exploding at the end of Galaxy 1. Yeah, the Lumas and Rosalina helped him out a bit, but it's still pretty crazy. The final stats for this Mario are going to be an 8 out of 10 for movement, 8 out of 10 for power-up access, 9 out of 10 for destructive capability, and an 8 out of 10 for durability. Now we get into the trickiest territory of all. This was so hard, but I think I have to give the number 2 spot to the Mario from Super Mario Odyssey. The Mario that teams up with the Botaneer named Cappy to save his sister Tiara and Peach from getting married to Bowser on the moon. Mario has more movement options than ever before in this universe. Triple jump, long jump, side flip, infinite rolling, spin jumping, dives, cap throws, cap jump variations. It's incredible. The main gimmick of this game being capturing enemies, allies, or certain inanimate objects with Cappy, allowing you to access some of the powers these things have to offer. With a total of 52 unique captures that Cappy can allow Mario to use, it's so broken. There's pretty much no drawback to Cappy either, which was an issue with the other 2 sandbox 3D Mario powers. All the cap powers in Super Mario 64 had time limits to them before Mario would revert back to base, and Flood had the problem of running out of water. Cappy is just spammable though, because he's just always on your head. The amount of power variety this allows for is more than any other version of Mario to this day. Durability wise, he's about on the same level as the Mario from the Galaxy games because of how they were both able to take up to 6 hit points and don't take fall damage. However, this Mario might have a bit of an edge in this department because of how a certain cutscene played out in the main story. Specifically when the Lord of Lightning struck both Mario and Cappy with a purple lightning blast, where the two of them proceeded to face tank that attack and move like they were still ready to fight after the Odyssey ship landed in the Ruined Kingdom. The 2 out of 3 Bowser fights, if you count the harder version of him in the post game, and the concept of limited captures is where this Mario just barely missed the mark for number 1. These Bowser fights work very similarly to Mario 64 fights where Mario has to use Bowser's own strength against him to emerge victorious. His attacks including a hat throw, fire breath, fire shockwaves, throwing spiked balls, some flaming, some not, and a tail whip attack that reminds me of Mario's Tanuki tail whip. He's very strong in this game for sure because he was actually able to beat Mario right at the beginning of the game. It's just his size and the amount of times you fight him that makes me think this Bowser here is not on the same level as some of the other Bowsers. This Mario can clearly capture Bowser and utilize his main attacking abilities, but like I mentioned before, would Mario even be able to properly capture a stronger version of Bowser? Because if Cappy can only handle a T-Rex in timed doses before getting overwhelmed, I think it's safe to say the same thing would happen with a more cracked out version of Bowser. This Mario's final numbers will be a 10 out of 10 for movement, 10 out of 10 for power-up access and or versatility, 8.5 out of 10 for destructive capability, and an 8 out of 10 for durability. Now for the strongest Mario of them all, and I think you guys all know who that's going to be. I'm going to be giving the number 1 spot to 3D World / Bowser's Fury Mario. I really had to do a lot of thinking to decide whether to give this or Odyssey the number 1 spot. What gave this Mario the slight edge is how the Bowser fights worked in this game. Bowser fights are a big factor in deciding how high one of these Marios will place if you couldn't tell already. Regular 3D World Bowser uses 2 of Mario's own power-ups against him, for crying out loud. 2! 2 incredibly strong ones at that. The double cherry that lets him make multiple clones of himself and the catsuit, allowing him to scale walls, swipe his tail, and have stronger claws. Then of course, there's the Fury Bowser Mario deals with in the Bowser's Fury side story. A giant version of Bowser powered up by Bowser Jr.'s black paint and filled with endless rage. Some of the context given in the story feels like it implies this version of Bowser is the strongest one Mario has dealt with in the mainline titles, with the only way to calm him down is to fight him more than once using the Giga Bell power-up. A power-up that combines the power of the Super Bell in what feels like a Mega Mushroom on steroids. Pretty sure I had the Mega Mushroom ranked higher than the Giga Bell in my strongest power-up video, and not gonna lie, I feel like I should have switched their positions at the very least. Oh well. The only thing Mario kind of loses out on here with the Giga Bell is the ability to climb walls, since there aren't anything big enough to match his new size, but that's honestly whatever. What had me debating putting him lower was the following. The way you have to defeat Fury Bowser, combined with the limited movement and power-up access, were kind of the main issues. Mario cannot fully defeat the Bowser without using Plessie for help, which is like if Mario needed Yoshi for a final boss. Either way, he still needed to go Giga to get rid of the black paint. The movement is pretty much back to what it used to be in 3D Land, so no triple jump or backflip. Spin jumping is there though, so that's cool. However, I realized the very concept of the base cat suit kind of makes up for the lack of triple jumps since it gives more mobility options and attacking options. The invincibility leaf along with the invincibility bell are making their debut. The invincibility bell is weird because I think you can only get it in game via a Cat Mario or Cat Peach amiibo. Regardless, it's still part of the game and incredibly overpowered. Mario's durability is the main thing that takes the hit. He doesn't have to worry about fall damage like in 3D Land and the other 2D games, but he can still only take 3 hits at most before death. This includes his Giga Bell form if Fury Bowser hits him 3 times. I don't know, the durability in this game is so weird because Fury Bowser's attacks always do 1 hit of damage to Mario regardless of what form he's in. This would be a lot easier if the standard size Mario would just get one shot by Fury Bowser even if he had a power-up active. Regular 3D World Mario can use the Super Bell, Super Leaf, Boomerang Flower, amongst others. It really does feel like Mario is at his peak here with just everything he has going up for him. It really does feel like the movement and kind of durability are the only things that take a hit. The final numbers I'm going to be giving this one are a 9.5 out of 10 for movement, 10 out of 10 for power-up access, 10 out of 10 for destructive capability, and an 8 out of 10 for durability. In the end, I think it's almost up to personal preference between whether or not you believe 3D World or Mario Odyssey Mario is the strongest because of how finicky the factors at play are in their respective games. On one hand, you have a Mario with very solid movement on top of the highest destructive power to take on Bowser and arguably his strongest form, while on the other hand, you have a Mario with the best movement and most ability variety in the entire series, who still took down an incredibly strong version of Bowser that Mario himself can also turn into. At the end of the day, this is just my take on everything. It's kind of impossible to truly make an objective strength tier list for all these Marios. Don't be a stranger to letting me know in the comments below who you think is the strongest Mario, or if there's anything you think I might have missed out on that could make a better or worse case for any of the Marios presented in this video. I would love to know your thoughts. This video was quite the motherload to put together, so it'd mean a lot if you guys hit the like button or subscribed if you haven't already. But for now, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, take care, bye-bye.